Thanks, folks. Thanks, everyone. My name is Aitor, and I'm a principal PM working at Microsoft Fabric team. First of all, I would like to thank you, the Solar Foundation, give me the opportunity to talk here. So today, I'm going to talk about building an end-to-end data lakehouse using Microsoft Fabric. So we announced Microsoft Fabric back in May at Build. So today, I'm going to touch on some of the concepts that the Kurago colleagues also mentioned, like a data lake, how to build a data lakehouse based on the medallion architecture and so on and so forth. Yeah, so first of all, let me start by a little bit of origin, right? So all the analytics complexes are quite complex and fragmented, right? So you have work on this kind of project, you will see that we have different systems, we have a lot of apps that we need to integrate. And normally, also those apps or those frameworks or applications that we want to use are coming from different vendors, so it's quite complicated to integrate everything, and it's kind of time consuming as well. So this is not only about if we take a cloud provider, even open source, whatever, you need to build data flows and integrate and build different layers across different clouds. So depending on the projects that you're working on, that could be a massive effort from different teams on creating the first layer, integrating the services, and then pulling it all together, right? So if we just look from a bigger perspective, this is a picture from First Smart Capital, where they basically put and categorize different services from and categorize them, right? So you can imagine how complicated this could be, right? So, the guys before, they were talking about, how you made the technology choice, right? That sounds, it could sound pretty easy, but it's not. Like, should I choose service A or service B, and so on. So this could be super complicated. And we have heard from a lot of people and that I don't want to be a chief integration officer. I just want to have my own role. I want to be my chief data officer, right? So I don't want to spend a lot of time integrating tools, integrating services, and so on. So at Microsoft, we thought about it as well. Like normally in a data project, or if you're building a data system, normally you have a typical workloads, like you have a data integration, you have data engineering, you have data warehousing, real-time analytics, business intelligence. You have those workloads on top, and then underneath you have data lake, and then you put some governance and administration, right? So at Microsoft, we have full services for that, right? I mean, even multiple services for each of the buckets. So we have, for instance, Data Factory for data integration. We have Databricks for data engineering and Spark. We have Azure Synapse for data warehouse as well. But even though we have those services, it still is too far complex to integrate those services, even in our cloud, right? So that's super complicated. We have many products. People need to face, and customers need to face different experiences. Some of the services use open formats, others use proprietary formats, like Azure Synapse Dataware use proprietary, but however you're working with Azure Databricks, for instance, you can use Delta, and so on. Some of them are dedicated versus serverless, PaaS versus SaaS, and so on, right? So, we have heard a lot that people spend a lot of time integrating and, and going deep into why this is not working and need to change that. So back in May, we introduced Microsoft Fabric. So we want to tackle this particular issue and solve and make, that whatever data solutions you're building to make it super easy, right? So which are the pillars for Microsoft Fabric? Basically, we have 4. The first one is a complete analytics platform. Everything is unified. So the 6 workloads that I mentioned before, like a data engineering, data warehouse, data integration, and so on, those are integrated in a unified experience. Everything is SaaSified. Before also I talked like we have services which are PaaS and SaaS, so we have built everything around SaaS. So this is kind of an intuitive and easy way for people that they can jump in, go there, and start just building their data lakehouse. I'm going to show you a demo later on. this is everything secure and governed as well, right? So we roughly touched before where security and governance came into place. You have multiple services, how I manage security or how I manage data governance across different services. So here, everything is unified, integrated within Microsoft Fabric. And the lake is, jumping to the second pillar, the lake is centric and open. What that means is that we created everything on top of, we call it a one lake, which is basically an abstraction layer on top of ADLS Gen 2 on Azure. So everything is integrated and around one lake. So all the workloads on top of Microsoft Fabric use one lake and operate on top of that virtualization layer. There is one copy of data. So you may also, if you have been building data systems, you have seen maybe some people copying data from one source system to another one, creating data silos. Then you have data quality issues. You have, garbage in, garbage out. Those kind of things. So that could be the norm as well, right? So we want to reuse that and just create one copy of data, whatever workload you're using. That means that you have data analysts that they prefer to run SQL queries. They can just run queries on top of the data that they have in the one lake. And similarly, if they want to run Spark workloads, they can also use that. And this is not only for Microsoft Fabric, but this is open, right? So if you're using Azure Databricks or whatever workload, you can actually query that to the data that is on top of one lake. And everything is also built around, of course, the Microsoft ecosystem, which is M365, and then we have Copilot, et cetera. But today I want to focus on the lake-centric and open, right here. So what I mean by that is that these are the 6 workloads that we have at Microsoft Fabric. Data Factory, so you can actually build pipelines or data flows. We have also Synapse Data Engineering, so you can run your Spark jobs and use notebooks. Synapse Data Science, Data Warehousing, real time. And then we have serverless compute behind that. That means that all the 4 compute engines, whether it's Spark or T-SQL or Custor or analysis services, operate on top of one lake. So that means they access the same data that you are storing. So there is no need for data copy across different compute engines that you're going to use. So everything, as I said, is based on one lake, right? So one lake, the compute engine uses the common data format, which is Delta Parquet. So this is Delta tables. And you can actually store the Delta tables in one lake and then access it for whatever compute you want, right? So you want to use SQL or Spark or Databricks or SD Insight, whatever you want, right? So that's it. And then on top of one lake, we implement the universal security layer for everything you have. So that means you can have table access security, you can define row level security, column level security on top of the data that you have on one lake. And that security enforcement will be applied to the compute engine that you're going to use. So let's focus on the data engineering. Regarding data engineering, as I mentioned, on top of the one lake, you can create a lakehouse, right? So we have a concept or an artifact within the fabric, what we call a lakehouse. So a lakehouse is just, it has 2 sections. I'm going to go deeper later on. But you can actually create a managed area and a managed area for your Delta tables and for your files. So imagine you can imagine so one lake as a OneDrive for data, more or less. And on top of that one lake, you can build a little lakehouse so you can host all your data for the data system or data project that you're building on. In data engineering, we have integrated Apache Spark. So right now, we're supporting Spark 3.3 here. And of course, we'll be supporting 3.4 as well soon. Everything is integrated with VS Code. And and whatever you want to use, like a Spark or T-SQL, you can be also using. So so I spent a little bit about why we created Fabric and what is Fabric in a high level. But I'm going to show you later how to build an end-to-end data lakehouse using Fabric, right? So what is a data lakehouse? So a data lakehouse, this is a reference for the paper. It's just a design pattern where you can actually create different layers based on the data that you're ingesting, right? This is not new. You came from the data warehouse side. I know how many years, decades ago, but we have staging, then we have data warehouse, and then we have data marts, right? So pretty much we're talking the same terms. So we have bronze, silver, and gold, where here in the bronze layer, you ingest the raw data. So normally you ingest the ASIS data. So the data is immutable. You can ingest batch in real time, and you normally keep the source system data format, whatever you have, CSV, packet files, whatever you have, right? And then we have the silver layer where you normally filter and clean the data. So in this case, you can apply some data quality rules. So you can check for duplicates, for timeliness, whatever data quality metrics you want to check. And of course, you can actually improve and enrich the data that you're landing in the silver layers with some metadata as well. So you can actually leverage that in the subsequent layers. Coming into the last layer, which is the gold layer, this is where you create a consumption layer. So different data consumers could actually log or read into the gold layer and read that data. So in this case, we need to take care about the versioning of the gold layer, do the right aggregates, enrichment of the data, so folks could actually, connect to that and read it. So this is pretty much the data lakehouse using the medallion architecture. But again, this is not a silver bullet, right? So you can actually customize this. So maybe you put a landing a layer before the raw, and so on and so forth. So I haven't seen folks implementing this in different ways, honestly. So what's a lakehouse in Fabric? So a lakehouse in Fabric is just a file system under a workspace, under the one lake, right? So we have one lake, and then we create a little lakehouse, which is just using one lake, right? And one lake is just an abstraction on top of ADLH-N2, which is the storage system. So Lakehouse has two different sections. I'm going to show you that in the demo. It has the table section where you can create, basically manage Spark tables if you are familiar with that. Or you can actually upload whatever files you want, right, to the file section. So the file section is like a OneDrive. Let's imagine. You can upload whatever you want. You can upload images. You can upload CSV files. You can upload Parquet files, whatever you want, right? So the Lakehouse in Fabric, this particular artifact is actually interconnected so you can land different data into the Lakehouse, as I mentioned before in the data Lakehouse architecture, and you can achieve that using different kind of mechanisms. The first one is shortcuts. So shortcuts is you have a Lakehouse, and let's imagine that you have data hosted in AWS S3 on FSS, whatever. So let's assume that you create a symbolic link to that particular source system without any data copy, right? So you're basically creating a pointer to the source system from the Lakehouse using the shortcut. So there is no data pipeline, data flow coming in, so there is no data copy coming into the Lakehouse. That's the first way to ingest or make data available into the Lakehouse. The second way is you want to copy the data is using the pipelines or the data flows. This is particularly interesting for folks that maybe they are not really code intensive, or they don't really like to, deal with code, prefer, UI kind of stuff, so they can use pipelines and data flows. And the third way is just use notebooks or Spark jobs, so you can also sandwich jobs and ingest data into a Lakehouse. And then you can just run a bunch of transformations, so you can just create the subsequent layers, like the silver one, the gold one, based on the Spark as well. And then Lakehouse offers two ways of consuming data. So basically, you can actually use the same ADLS API. So in this case, using the authorization, so you can connect to a Lakehouse and read-write to the Lakehouse using the DBFS API. And also, it offers SQL endpoint for folks that prefer SQL instead of Spark, right? So this is the architecture or building, in this case, a data Lakehouse using Fabric Lakehouse. So here, I'm going to show you a little bit how to ingest data into the Lakehouse, into a bronze layer. I'm going to create a bronze folder. In this case, we're going to ingest some Parquet files. And then once we ingest those files, I'm going to do some transformation using Spark notebooks, and we'll create some silver tables and also some gold tables on top of the Lakehouse. And then the last part, I'm going to show you how to connect using Power BI, which is everything integrated into the science experience, into a Lakehouse as well. So yeah, let me go to the demo. So there we are. Oh, let me. Yep. Okay. There we are. Okay, so this is Microsoft Fabric, as I mentioned. So everything is integrated. So here you have the 6 different workloads in the SaaS experience. So I can jump from data engineering, data science, real-time analytics, data warehouse. So in this case, I'm going to choose data engineering. So I create a Data Vision 2023 workspace. And here I create different artifacts. So now I'm Aitor. I'm acting as a data engineer persona. So here I'm jumping to data engineering. Here I created before a Lakehouse, right? So you can just create this by jumping. It's pretty easy. So you can just come here, data engineering Lakehouse, create. You give it a name, and that's it. And once you create that, let me jump into a Lakehouse. I have it here. It will create 2 sections, as I mentioned. So the file section and the table section, okay? So the file section is the managed area, where in this case, I use the worldwide importers dataset, which is an open source dataset, or open dataset, sorry. So in this case, I just ingest some data here, some fact tables and dimension tables, pretty straightforward. So you can see here that there's a bunch of Parquet files, right, that I ingested. So in this case, how I ingest this, if you remember a little bit, I went pretty fast, sorry for that. But you will see that I was using a pipeline in this case. So I integrate this with a data copy activity. So in this case, I'm a kind of citizen, developer kind of persona that I prefer use the UI. So this is the source system. So this is a public blob storage. So I'm importing the worldwide importers, and destination is the Lakehouse, right? And it's the bronze worldwide importers raw folder. So basically, I run that, and the data land here into the file section. So I have my dimension and fact tables. So this is my bronze layer. Imagine that I land this data here in my Lakehouse in the file section into the bronze. And then I want to create a delta tables, right? So for that, I use a simple notebook that basically I convert my Parquet files into the delta tables, right? So basically, I read the different dimensions, city, customer, date, employee, stock item, whatever, and I convert it into the Spark managed tables. And I save those within the table section. So you can see if I run those, after that, you will see here silver, right? So silver dimension city. So I have a bunch of them here. So if I go to Lakehouse, I can actually preview the data that I ingested, right? So here you can see the dimension customer. So assuming that I ran all the notebook, I did that before. So this is silver. I ran all the transformation here. I create my silver layer. Then I need to create the gold layer, right? So for the gold layer, sorry, before jumping into that, let's assume that I don't want to copy the data, right? So in this case, I copied the data from blob storage using here to the Lakehouse. So let's assume that I want to use the shortcut. So you can see here that I create another table which contains a different hyperlink or icon here. That means that this is a shortcut, right? So in this case, I just create a shortcut into ADLS-2. So if I go to a Lakehouse, you can see that even in the table section, you can create a shortcut. So if your data is on AWS S3 or ADLS-2 or even another OneLake, you can create a shortcut. So in this case, I create a shortcut to another Delta table that someone created, right? So I create a pointer, and then I am able to use it also in my Lakehouse. So this is exactly this table here. So I just created for demo purposes. But in this case, I can have the same exact experience. So I can see the data, and I can, I can actually use it as well. So, and then lastly, I create a gold layer here, everything integrated in the same Lakehouse. So in this case, I'm using, I'm creating some aggregation gold layers. So aggregate by city and aggregate by employee, blah, blah, blah. So in this case, I'm using a Spark here, and here I'm using some SQL query to run pretty much the same job. So you can see that I created the 2 gold layers here. So from the gold layer, I said, oh, okay, now I want to build a Power BI report. So I jump into Power BI, and you can see here that I also create a Power BI report from the same SaaS experience. So in this case, I'm using the 2 gold tables that I have, and I just created this, jumping into that. So yeah, so as you can see, this is quite intuitive, quite easy. So I didn't kind of, I didn't do it live, but I didn't spend so much time kind of integrating stuff. So I jump here, I create a Lakehouse, I create a couple of Spark transformation, I create a few tables, and then I create a Power BI report, right? So let me jump into a deck. Yeah, so there we are. Yeah, so I briefly show you what is Microsoft Fabric experience, how you can easily build an end-to-end data lakehouse, right, using different layers. There are a bunch more Spark experience within Fabric, and I'm going to mention all of it, so I'm running out of time. But yeah, so that's all from my side. Thank you. You can try Microsoft Fabric. It's free, so we have a trial for everybody. You can try it out. We have a bunch of learning as well, a bunch of tutorials. And if you want to engage with the community, we have an idea site as well, where everybody can actually post an idea. If you want to make an integration with whatever open source tool or framework, you can actually upload your ideas. We are monitoring that continuously. So, with the engineers, actually, we're bringing back all the feedback from the community, so we can actually make the product more open for different tools. So basically, the idea is so that people could actually create stuff and create value faster. So thank you.
Great. Thank you very much, Aitor.